Hello everyone, I didn't have time to sit down and script the AMA this month, so I'm going to have to do it over the camera. It's just been crazy. Yeah, doing the last video took a little longer than I thought, and then yesterday ended up being a waste. We're going to try this again, so apologies if the camera keeps glitching. Does anyone know of a good way to just record the web camera straight without using OBS? Because OBS is working fine for the live streams, but when I'm just recording the webcam straight like this, it just keeps glitching out. So let me know if you know of any good alternatives. In the meantime, it's time to go over the questions that supporters asked in October. And if you want to ask questions for November, the links are below. You can do it on Patreon, Subscribestar, or Discord just by supporting at the $5 level. So let's start over here on Patreon with a question from Anon Donor. And he's asking about something I've talked about before, this idea that, no, Americans are just over-relying on cars. We need to be more like Europe and have everyone crammed into cities and not have cars and just walk everywhere and take mass transit. And I've talked before about how elitist that is. And when you have someone in rural areas and they want to go to a store and the store is 20 miles away, what are they supposed to do? Walk? It's not like the buses are going to go out that way. Yeah, it's just part of the urban-rural divide. That you want to see it in action? We just had an election. Go look at all of the states and look at how divided they are. Look at how you have, for example, Democrats just crammed into the cities, Republicans spread out everywhere. And of course, the Democrats say, yes, we want democracy, we want majority. Yeah, because that means that people in all these rural areas are underserved. And we just saw that with Helene, which, spoiler alert, is going to be a different question. But you know, we saw how, like Asheville and Boone, the big cities in the North Carolina mountains, were getting all the support. Rural areas of the mountains were basically getting nothing. So Anon Donor asks, how do you respond that we shouldn't widen the roads because of induced demand that alternatives need to be built to driving? I'm talking about measures like road diets, taking away lanes for bikes, redirecting highway funds for boondoggles like trains, HSR, expanding train service, closing roads for cars to create pedestrian spaces, removing highways, etc., instead of actually making roads and highways better. I mean, what are you going to do if you close them? So, just everyone walk. Well, you got someone in a rural area, then unlike the city, they have to get a car, they have to buy a car and keep it maintained and, buy gas for it. And then they go to the city, and then what? If they can't drive to their destination, they have to park it somewhere. All right, now they're going to pay to park on top of that and then pay for transit on top of all of that. So again, you're just making it worse for rural people. It is nice when you can have cars and bicycles and pedestrians and they can do things like instead of paving with asphalt, they would pave with tile or crazy paving or something like that to get everyone to drive slow and no markings so that everyone kind of shares the road. And it's also nice to have things like, shared space intersections and things like that. There's a shopping village near me where it's all asphalt, but they do it with roundabouts. And everyone kind of knows that, yeah, there's pedestrians around everywhere. Yeah, there's properly crosswalks where people cross, but people are going to cross everywhere. And so everyone just kind of shares the road. But it's also kind of a mess because it's not really designed properly for that. So if you've got an area like that and you design it properly, it can be good, but you're still going to want to make it car accessible for that reason. And trains are just like really bad because you have to go along the tracks. You can't go anywhere else. The stops are fixed. And so it can't dynamically change with a growing city. I've talked about this before. You set up the train stop at a busy area of the city, but then years later, that area is no longer busy and things have grown up somewhere else where there's not a train stop. So what do you do? And it might be better if you had passenger rail going from city to city as an alternative to airplanes. But what do we have now? We have the Amtrak monopoly, the government monopoly that can't even make money on a snack bar. And I mean, you look at it and it's just as expensive, if not more so, than flying and takes you like 3 days just to get somewhere. I think if you want to look at what the future should be, look at Tesla's October 10th, the 1010 event, where they rented, I think, like half of the Warner lot. I think it was lot B in Burbank. It's this area you've seen in a lot of movies where it's set up like areas of New York, and it's got roads and stop signs, and they shoot the exteriors there, and so they have the traffic going through, but it's all closed off. It's not actual roadways. And so he had that area set up, and there were like tons of people at this event, and they were walking around everywhere, and there were bicycles and everything else. And he had Model Ys and the new prototype Cybercabs giving people driverless rides around all over the place. And they were getting rides from one place to another. And those cars were having to share the roads with the bicycles and pedestrians. And when you add on top of that the Robovan, it's spelled Robovan, but Elon kept pronouncing it Robovan, this cool looking Art Deco. I love his design ethic, or someone at Tesla's design ethic. You know, it kind of harkens back to a day when movies that were about the future, even if they were dystopias, there was still an optimism there. You know, Metropolis is the perfect example. I'm talking about the silent film, not any of the Superman stuff. I just love that design. And even though that was to show you the problems that can happen when you have workers that are disgruntled, and then you got the socialist revolutionary who riles them all up and then takes it all to the brink of destruction. Just the design of all of that, on top of the ending, but all of it just made you feel a real hope for the future. And that was what it used to all be about. And now everyone's gotten pessimistic about everything. They think that the future is just going to be drab, and we've gotten away from the Art Deco stuff, and we've got to the brutalist architecture, and just not good. So I love that design ethic, and I really hope we can start going back to it. But yeah, Robovan was giving people rides, and it could be, I guess, either like a chartered bus, like if you had a group that wanted to go somewhere, or if you just had it operate like a city bus, only not through the city, just, you know, a private owner would have it and send it around places to make money doing ride shares. Why not? And it would be the case where, like, you got a Model 3 and you're just driving around and doing stuff. You're going to work. You're going to be at work several hours. And you say, okay, car, while I'm working, go make money for me. So, you know, this would be where it's completely driverless and unsupervised FSD as opposed to the supervised FSD they have now. But it would just go off, do the ride share, give people rides, and then get back to your work in time for you to get off. And then you just go home, and then even after you're home, you can say, hey, go make money for me. So your car would actually work for you. And when you've got all of these private people doing that, and you even have private firms buying fleets of these things, what the hell do you need city transit for at that point? And that would even help people out in rural areas, because they could, you know, summon a driverless car. Hey, come get me. I need to go somewhere. Might take a little longer than if they had their own car. Or they could still do it with their own car. But that's only going to be the case if everywhere is vehicle accessible. And you wouldn't even have to have all these massive parking lots everywhere that you have now, because you just drop them off at the door, then go off and give someone else a ride. Elon showed us the way, people. Private driverless car services and private driverless Robovan services with private individual owners and private company fleets and things like that will do much better than mass transit. All right, and then Darth Vega asks, what is your take on near-death experiences? Unlike a lot of the woo, I have a lot of sympathy for the people who believe that, because they've gone through a very stressful event, which is almost dying, you know, clinically being dead for a while. And in the process, they had a very confusing experience, and they don't know how to properly interpret it. But the issue is very much, what are they experiencing? And we know what they're experiencing. It's just whatever stress your brain goes through, where it's doing that, your brain is confused, and it's trying to make the most sense of what it's getting. And remember, I've pointed this out before, your brain is just constantly working to try and make sense of a noisy world. Try and make everything look like it's all this perfect world with colors and solid objects and things like that, when what it's getting is just a bunch of electromagnetic noise. In a world that, you know, as Feynman said, is just a mess of jiggling things. And your brain has to piece it all together. And the big cue on this is that you have the same thing happening with fighter pilots when they're training to like pull 9Gs and they black out. They're not dying. They're not about to die. They're not in a situation where death is even a thing that's going to happen. They just lose oxygen to the brain, black out, and they come back. And guess what? About the same number of them, I think it's like 17, 18%, I forget the exact percentage, have a near-death experience. Except they're not near death. They're not anywhere close to death. They're not even in the ballpark of death. And they don't interpret it as that. They interpret it as a weird dream. But when you've got people who are actually in the hospital and they're going through something scary and they're actually afraid of that and they've had that near miss, I can understand how they'd go to it. Now, the people who exploit that are scum of the earth. All the people who write the books and get them pulled into their bogus religions and say, yeah, see, that proves Jesus. God, shut up. You know, that's if they're Christian. The Muslim will go, see, that proves Allah. Whatever their religion is, that proves it. Whereas you would think that if these are real and that there's one religion that's correct, then the Christians would be going, see, it was Jesus, and the Muslims going, well, what do you know? Is Jesus after all? And the Jews would be going, what do you know? Is Jesus after all? And the atheists would be going, what do you know? But no, they don't say that. They use it as confirmation for whatever bogus crap they're trying to use to bilk the public. And that's really all there is to it. All right, let's go over to Subscribe Star. FunwithFacts asks, in an ancap society, how would private courts resolve moral disagreements, such as whether black, Jews, the unborn, etc., are humans the non-aggression principle applies to? Basically, however the market says they would. And remember, the basis of all this is property rights, starting with self-ownership. So blacks own themselves, and they can go to court and say so, and Jews can go to court and say so, they own themselves. If you ever get a robot that's, fully sapient and capable of asserting that, they'd say so too. If gorillas ever develop enough intelligence, then they have self-ownership. Now, the unborn can't speak for themselves, but the question is, then who's in charge of it? And that would be the mother, wouldn't it? The mother would be coming in saying that, and then someone would be coming in with some sort of dispute on it. The father might dispute it. Say, she wants to abort, I don't want to. How do you figure that out? And there have been all sorts of proposals for this. Like, for example, if you read L. Neil Smith's Probability Broach series, the way they do it is it's pretty much all financial. You just make it monetary compensation. So if someone tries to aggress against you, and, a lot of times it's just taken care of right then and there with a bullet. Hey, you're going to try to, murder me or rob me or something. And you get them with a gun or a toad sticker or whatever. That'll take care of it right then and there. That'll take care of it right quick. There's not much left after that. They do have this organization called the CLA, Civil Liberties Association. One of many private ones, because it's an anarchy. There's no official government, anything. But they do go and inspect everything and collect evidence and make sure everyone's civil liberties are all right. But other than that, it's all about the lawsuits. So let's say that you think that someone has a teenage girl kidnapped and tied up in their basement, and you break in to go rescue her. No matter what, you're liable for breaking and entering. You did that to their property, but then you rescue the girl. And kidnapping is a much bigger offense than breaking and entering. So when you do the lawsuit, he owes you a lot more than you owe him. And so you end up winning. Now, if you're wrong and there's no teenage girl, then you pay. And that would be far superior to, just being able to, like the police do now, just smash down the doors, run through, oh, we got the wrong address, sorry, and nothing bad happens to them. Far superior to that. And that's just one possible way of many of doing it. But it would all be based on self-ownership and ultimately the question of who owns the property and who aggressed against each other to what degree. That's how it would all shake out in some way or another. So again, that's just one example. That's not the way of doing it, but check out the probability broach. And finally, Dickin Myanus asks, what is the extent that Helene affected you? Just the food in the fridge, or were there any refrigerated medications you had to throw out? No, all the medications were fine. Any besides lack of power that affected you, like maybe flooding your basement? We live kind of up on a higher elevation. It's not exactly a hill, but it is a higher elevation, so we don't really get flood waters. If you go down that way, there's a little dip where they also have the drainage, so it goes through there. That place will flood if the drainage clogs up. Right back there, you've got the Catawba River, and it can also flow down the road that way into the Catawba River Basin. So we don't have to worry about floodwaters here. Give us all the details. I want to make a list if I'm ever to face a similar situation to be prepared. It's a good idea for anyone listening to do so too. It was really just those 3 days. We had the 2 days without power and then the day without internet access. And one thing was just having battery packs like this. You got a few of these. Just keep them charged up. And then if something happens, then at least you've got enough to keep your phone charged, because that was the only internet access we had was over the phones because the 5G was still working. It was just the cable that went out. Also have your battery powered lanterns and lots of D-cell batteries to make sure you can get through that, because that's the best way to light your home without candles, which is a fire hazard. One big problem for me where I am, since we don't have city water, since I'm out in the boonies, is well water. Because well water, when the power goes out, you don't have power for the pumps either. So you lose water. And how do you flush your toilets when you don't have water? It's just about getting containers and filling them with water and buying gallons of water to have to fill the toilet back up when you need to. Having lots of non-perishable food. I think it's the Mormons who say 2 years, I believe they say, of non-perishable food. That might be a little extreme, but hey, a few weeks worth might not be too bad. So you can check it out because they've got it down to a science. All of the ways that you can just buy perishable food, all of the things you can buy and just stick it away somewhere to just have a few weeks worth. That'll last you like forever. It's not the best stuff, but it'll keep you eating at least. I'm trying to think, because we didn't really get hit bad here in the Piedmont, as a lot of places did in the mountains. Really rare for a hurricane to go up through the mountains, I'm telling you. Especially one that bad. So I can't really say fresh from my memory what you should really do if you're in that situation. Other than things like have good homeowners insurance, have a good plan for sheltering in place, have a good plan for if you need to evacuate, how are you going to do that? And all the normal precautions. You can probably get a lot better advice than me from talking to a rescue worker or someone like that and just say, hey, what's the stuff I should have? Instead of going out and buying up all the toilet paper. I don't know what it is with toilet paper. We had another toilet paper crisis just like with COVID. Everyone was afraid of running out of toilet paper. Just general, not an emergency thing, but get a bidet. And you can get these, like if you're worried about losing water like I am, there are these handheld bidets that you can just fill up. So again, if you have plenty of spare water, in jugs or whatever, that you can refill. It's amazing how much toilet paper you save with those things. It's amazing how much cleaner you are with those things. So I can't really speak with authority to that, but I hope I've given you a few ideas at least. And he also says, by the way, not a question, but algorithmically, it might be a good idea to put the best question you get in the title of the AMA. It's not a bad suggestion, but which one? I mean, which one of these would really, catch people's attention? How about this? If you think there's a question that I should really pay attention to, hit the like on it. Or reply to it or something. Hey, this is a good question. Promote that one. There have been a few points where it's just really obvious, even to the point where I've pulled it out and made it a separate video. It's not a bad idea, but like in questions like today, I don't really know what I'd put up there. So whatever suggestions you have, let me know. And of course, comments for the Common God, shares for the Share Throne, like, subscribe, and the bell. And go to donate.bogosity.tv to figure out how to do all of this. You can do one-time donations, Patreon, Subscribestar, cryptocurrency. Ooh, new thing coming. I've got it set up. They've just got to build up the apps. Like ordinarily, if I want to get money from you in Dash, I would have to say, yes, please send your money to capital X, lowercase k, 5, lowercase c, j, capital J, R, B. No, I'm not going to do all that. You know what I have to do from this point on forward? Just send it to Shane DK. That's all you have to do on the Dash Network now. They have usernames. There's not a separate app and there's not a different thing you have to do. It's on chain. It's there. It's immutable. It's part of the main network now. They're still kind of building it out into the apps, but yeah, exciting stuff there. Of course, for the regular stuff, Patreon, Subscribestar, Discord. $3 a month will get you early videos, ad-free, and access to the live streams. $5 will get you AMA, and $7 will let you do a shout-out. Got something you want to promote? Got something you think needs a little more attention? $7 a month for that, so please go check all of that out. Thank you so very much for watching. Until next time, stay strong and be free.